Welcome to Happy Naked, the podcast. And today I have a wonderful, wonderful guest. And before, let's get to know about me. This is Dee, the founder of Dee Health and Fitness and the author of the book Happy Naked. I'm a personal trainer. I'm an energy worker or healer. And I also have a degree in computers. So my mission is to share the naked truth through taboo conversations that will allow you to elevate your sex life, relationship, intimacy, health, wellness, fitness, anything, you name it, anything that is going to elevate your energy, your vibration to contribute to this planet. And you can follow me on Instagram as dmago_happy naked. You can find me on Facebook under Happy Naked or Naked Fit or the Health and Fitness. So if you're looking for me, you're gonna find me. That is for sure. And I have a guest today who is a wonderful, wonderful person. So her name is Jenn Williams and is a Canadian-born business owner and a mother as well, and who leads education and transformation in the areas of networking, building a healthy net worth, and a business leadership. So the one thing I want to say today about our topic, it is I find money being a taboo. People don't talk about it. And even one big example that I see quite common is when people get in relationships, they don't talk about money. So my bank account is my bank account. It is private. You don't want to know how much money I make. And, you know, it's this secrecy. It's the weird secrecy, you know, about money. So, so you come in a relationship and you say, this is who I am. You know, I have this many boyfriends or girlfriends, or, you know, I have been in this many relationship, you know, I like to fart, or, you know, I'm okay with that, and all those things. And they don't even talk about money, which is very interesting. And where that come from, I do not know. You know, with the energy around money, it is quite interesting. A lot of people say that money is an energy exchange. Whether it's an energy exchange or not, was still needed to, you know, have a living, right? Whether, you know, it is a real thing, or you can connect as its energy in exchange. We still need to pay things. We need to pay the bills. We still need to have that feeling of abundance. And also we are living in this world that it's completely full of lack of love, lack of relationships, lack of self-confidence, lack of, you know, just lack. Wonder why we're lacking of money, right? So, you know, those are all these wonderful things. So welcome, Jenn, for saying yes to this. Thank you very much. I really appreciate having you here today. It is wonderful. And she has an amazing gift to share to the world. So I want to ask you the first question. Where do you live? And where are you actually from? Because it might not be the same place.
Sure. And thank you so much for having me. It's absolutely my pleasure to be on your podcast today and give as much value as I can and hope to change people's lives for the better, just as you do. So I am born and raised in Calgary, Alberta, in Canada, West Coast Canada. We're kind of almost Central West. And I've spent majority of my life here. I've lived in Vancouver for 2 years, a little while back, and migrated back to Calgary. So Calgary's home for me.
Yeah. Well, it is home for me. One thing I learned about as an immigrant, it is that home is where you are.
Yes.
And that's it, right? That's pretty much it. So tell us a little bit, let's talk about money. Let's jump into this because it's really, really interesting. And I know you have a lot to share. So the floor is all yours. Tell us about, you know, what's your perception of money, or how do you get to do what you're doing today? And what was the learning through all this journey, and how you can help people to create that connection with their finances or money itself, anything, right? Abundance.
Absolutely. And, you know, I agree with what you're saying about money is just really about an exchange of value. And we do weigh a lot on it. You know, my life comes from, I guess, the journey, really, what got me passionate about speaking about finance and money and mainly wealth, health, wealth, and all those aspects that make us happy, healthy human beings, was really my journey. I didn't grow up with a lot of money, to be truthful. I grew up in a family that constantly talked about money, which I'm sure a lot of people that hear this podcast can relate. I remember my parents always having money on their mind, how much money they have for their bills, how much money they have for their dreams and goals. And my parents were part of the working class. I see my grandparents go through talk about the industrial phase and seeing that mindset. And then I see my parents' generation, or Gen X, so to speak. And then I see, the millennials, and now I think it's Gen Z or Gen Y. I'm sorry, I don't even remember. There's so many, but the youngest generation. And we all look at money different, but the same in some aspects. We need it. And it's the number one topic really on people's minds. I've seen so many people in my career path just lose sleep at night because of money. And truthfully, it doesn't matter if you have $50,000 or you make $50,000 a year or $5 million a year. What I've come to realize, it's really about the mindset and the education tools you have to be financially independent. So when I spend time with clients or people around me, I would do this for free. I love educating people about money and about wealth and financial freedom, which is number one. And each one of us has different dreams and goals. Your goal might be, 100 grand a year, or most people's might be 100 grand a year would get them by to pay for their bills and live happily. And some people might be $1 million. I mean, I'm never here to tell you what it is, but the truth is there is a huge lack of education in our society right now. And I think, truthfully, in my experience and what I've seen through the people I've worked with, is money becomes taboo because we weigh a lot of our own personal value and our personal identity on how much we have or how much we do not have of money. And that couldn't be more further from the truth. So I spend a lot of time on the mindset because I've been on both ends of the spectrum. I've grown up extremely poor, going to food banks, getting clothing from donations, to making $150,000 a year plus, and still living in that mindset. Like, I'm living paycheck to paycheck, which to me, I was like, this is mind blowing that, I'm still in this pattern. So just to condense, the journey is that I'll give you some stats, and I'll talk about Canada specifically, and the US is not too far off from us. We're taught at a very young age to go to school, get a good education, get a great job, climb the corporate ladder. And the first thing I noticed is when I got out of school, no one gave me a manual to money. However, I was given a credit card, right?
Yep.
Given a credit card and the ability to go into debt. So that's how it starts, right? And so here you are, 18 years old, or you're learning to buy things on your future self. You're borrowing from your future self. So that's what we're already being conditioned to do. The second thing is we're not taught how taxation works. And, one quote I heard from a millionaire in our business is, there's two sure things in life: death and taxes. So you can't fight taxes. You do need to become educated about what system you live in. And being in Canada, I'm so grateful for the immigration that we have in our country, because I've learned so much about what's out there in the world and how truly blessed we are to live in a country full of abundance, because we truly, truly are. There's so many options. It's just getting in front of the right people for the right education. So in Canada, two of the biggest education gaps is taxation and how money works. And the saddest thing about it, it's a taboo topic. No one wants to talk about it. And it leaves us incredibly vulnerable to people who we put in a high regard that may not have our best interest at heart. And it's not that I'm not saying that they mean ill will, but a lot of the times they don't know what they don't know. They couldn't possibly know what's best for you. They're just making an assumption based on, what they've been taught as well, which can leave things very vulnerable. So what does that look like? Well, right now, Canadians, for every dollar they spend, they're paying back $1.70.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a lot. That's debt. There's trillions of dollars of debt in our country that are tied up in credit cards at the bank. And most of the interest rates are 19.99%.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I talk a lot about is called the rule of 72.
Mm-hmm.
I'm more than happy to express it to people who want to know more information about it. It is a visual exercise, so I can share that definitely on another call, but pretty much just to give you the simplistic term, it's a banker's rule. And what it means is if you take your interest, let's say you have a savings account at the bank, or you have a mutual fund, or you have any kind of investment, GIC bonds, etc., you find out what that interest rate is on average. And if you take that interest rate and divide that by 72, it will tell you approximately how many years it's going to take for that money in that account to double.
Mm-hmm.
If you're making, let's say, 1 to 2, 3% tops at the bank in a savings account, and not to mention inflation, which is the cost of goods going up every year, is 3 to 4%, you're not making any money.
Yep.
On the road, you're going to be cannibalizing your savings as, the years go by.
And we're also talking about normal people. And what I mean with that is we are born in a middle class.
Yes.
Okay? Because I know it's not quite visual in countries like Canada to see like the difference between the classes according to our income or our wealth and all that kind of stuff. But I'm from Venezuela, and then it's pretty obvious to see who's poor and who's not.
Yes.
Right?
Separation.
And we don't get to see, I'm middle class. I was born middle class completely in many ways. And where and also I was born in a time that it was not possible for me to get out of that. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm born middle class. I'm going to be middle class for the rest of my life, pretty much, right? So the chances are very, very slim to get out of that, which is attached to the income and, all that. Exactly. So when I'm looking back, my uncle, he grew up in a whole different time, and the same thing as my grandma. Mm-hmm. So my uncle went to university, same thing, and now he built his own empire, right, in computers, which is why I studied computers, right? Because that was the way to go. You got to do what the family does.
Yeah, he's
yeah. And and it's funny because at that point IT jobs were very, very well paid. I was making, in my country, I was making as much money as my mom. My mom had a lot of experience, and I was just coming out of college, and I was making as much money as my mom. And so it was very well paid, honestly. Here's the thing. I didn't know what to do with money. The only thing I did is just save money. The economy is different because I couldn't save money because inflation eats everything from you.
Yes.
The economy is completely backwards, where a car is an asset.
Oh, wow.
And so where savings doesn't count, you cannot save money because inflation is killing your money. So the only way for us to have some sort of saving, it is money I was making, I will have to buy US money. That was the only way for me to retain the value.
Wow.
Which is basically what I had to do in order for me to have some money saved to move to Canada, because I didn't have any other way to do it other than buying a car. I didn't see, the logic into that, or buying a property, which is, we're looking at a whole different amount. How do you start? How was it starting from scratch? The only way for me back home, it was from exchange to US dollars. That was the only option. And but we're talking about economy that is completely twisted, corrupted.
Yeah.
And in Canada, we're not too far from that these days. However,
there's definitely
there's right side to it. There are ways that we can get out of it.
Yes.
So I have a question for you.
Of course.
How did you, so number one, it's how did you get out of that mindset?
You know what the main thing is? It's so funny. And, you always hear these quotes or sayings, tried and true sayings from the wealthy or people who have the same lifestyle you do. And it's so true. Like, if you want to be a certain way, you have to surround yourself with people who are living that way. And so that's what I decided to do. I did everything I possibly could to get in front of people who had real wealth, you know, and not just the fancy house or the fancy car, but people who had a net worth that was healthy. Because for me and my family, I really wanted to give that legacy to my daughter and her generation going forward. It was bigger than me. And so what I asked, you know, the universe for, or source energy, whatever you want to vocalize it as, is to give me a clear path on how I can get in front of somebody who knows how to accumulate wealth. And luckily that person came into my life and I recognized it, and I became, you know, they say when the student's ready, the teacher shows up, and surely that's exactly what happened. So I've never said, I never really turned down anything on the first go. Another thing that I feel really holds people back when it comes to creating abundance in their life is they say no too fast. You know, oh, I'm not interested, or no, thank you. And I get that mindset, because sometimes you could be led down a road that if you're not knowledgeable in, you feel vulnerable, and that can scare you. But the thing is, I always encourage people to push past that and just at least see what that person has to offer and use your discernment, right? Because I always feel we have a natural ability to discern things. So I'm truly grateful I took that opportunity to take a step forward and listen to this person, because if I would have said no, or I'm not interested, my life would have not been as successful as it is today when it comes to the money mindset.
No, totally. How are you teaching your daughter about all this stuff?
Oh, yeah, it's very hands-on with her. So I have given her the ability to use money and to discern her own decisions. So when we go out, I will give her some money that she can spend or choose to save. And I encourage her along the way, and I just keep little tidbits of, you know, education. So I'll say to her, she knows about the rule of 72. I've educated her on that. Compounding is magic. While you're young, put money away. As soon as she, you know, I have money set aside for her, and she knows that as she gets older, she'll be able to independently contribute to that. So I always said, pay yourself first, Seren. At the end of the day, there's going to be, you know, debts that come your way. There's going to be, you're going to make some poor financial decisions. It's inevitable. We learn from our mistakes. Do not be afraid to fail forward. And the last lesson that I teach her is that you always, always, always need to pay yourself first. And what does that mean? That means when you get a paycheck, because, you know, I think everyone should work a job at some point, teaches us a lot. Put some money aside for you first, and then pay your bills and everything else, and get into that habit. And what you'll notice is that you'll always have money to pay your bills. You'll always have things to go forward. And in most cases, it's not necessarily a debt problem that people have, it's an income debt ratio problem. And what I mean by that is, like, people in most cases need to earn more income. The average job is not paying a lot these days, and that's where I struggle. So I teach her how to, you know, create abundance for herself. And I teach her the mindset that, you know, even if you start a job that you're not necessarily happy with, always work on your skill set and how you can give value back to people, because value is money. You know, money's just paper. It's neutral. Money's just electronic, right? But when you exchange value and you help people with solutions, and you're constantly working to serve people and give people solutions for their challenges, that's when they're willing to exchange that money for your service. So always look for ways of serving people, and you'll never be broke.
But here's the other thing, and you mentioned something that triggers something in my mind, like we need to create more money. I agree with that up to a certain point, because I also think a lot of people are spending way more money, and that's why they need to increase their income. It's because their expenses are way higher. And the question is, everything that you're really spending, is it really worth it?
Yes.
Because, I mean, let's talk about shoes. How many shoes combined between you and me we have? I'm sure we can have a shoe store. Like,
I mean, unless these shoes bring you incredible joy to the point where you have this abundance just coming at you, then great. But if you're just buying shoes out of the sheer fact of, you know, a remedy or an addiction to numb something, then that's probably not the best way to buy shoes.
Exactly. But that's the thing, right? So how many people really, really spend way more money than what they make? And it goes back to something that you said earlier, the credit card, because it's always counting on that.
Mm-hmm.
Like I have that it can support the lifestyle or something. There is this lady I interviewed recently, and she talks about something really really key, and I'm sure you can contribute to this, because she divorced, and then her, like, one of the things that she has to heal in some ways with her ego is that as a result of the divorce, of course they split debts and all that stuff.
Yeah.
There was some money that also they got to split. However, her biggest challenge is, I cannot sustain my lifestyle or the lifestyle that she had when she was married.
Mm-hmm.
And she really really worked very hard to keep up with the lifestyle, but she wasn't making the money. So
Mm.
she ended up being almost broke because she's trying to keep up, because at the end of the day you're looking to keep up with the lifestyle is based on what people think of you. And
Yeah.
that's why you're doing that. You're like, oh my God, I'm divorced, but I'm not going to change anything. I'm just going to stay the same. So you keep that, face to the world, that kind of mask saying nothing has changed. I'm good, the same lifestyle. But then it got to a point that she really have to, back off and say, okay, what am I doing this? I'm harming myself. I'm harming my kids. Their kids are older now, but then she's like, I'm harming my kids because this is exactly what I'm teaching them,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah, and it's unfortunate, but I think sometimes the good thing is if you can recognize it while that's happening, and you have you're asking those questions and you're having an awareness with that behavior, then that's all you can really do, right? But some people do need to just hit a wall. I mean, there was a point in my life where I just hit a financial wall, and I look back and I'm like, could I have done anything different? Could I have, yes, I could have, but truthfully, I was just meant to go through that. So I just failed forward pretty hard, and I think, sometimes in life you need to go through those lessons, and as long as you're not repeating them, you know what I mean? I mean, I think you need to integrate that and go, okay, what is it about this behavior that's fulfilling me? And it's like that in anything, not just money, but it could be a food addiction. It could be an addiction to substances. The list goes on, and it's really about what is the motivation or the reasoning behind this behavior. And you're absolutely right, when it comes to that point where you're just getting caught in the materialism of things, it's very fair to say that in most cases there's probably some detrimental behaviors going on, because we
Yeah.
don't need all that stuff. And I think it's good that we go through cycles. Like I said, I went through a cycle where I was making good money, but I was living paycheck to paycheck,
Mm-hmm.
and I hit a wall. And I'm truly grateful for that wall, because now I make far less than I have ever made in my adult life. And it's brought me to a place where I'm more fulfilled,
Yeah.
And I'm doing things from a heart identity versus an ego identity, because you're absolutely right. We do get caught up in, there was a point I remember, because I came from the beauty industry, where the executive lifestyle, I'm supposed to drive a certain brand name of car, and just to be truthful, I was so close to buying a Mercedes. And I remember being with the gentleman that is my mentor, that just started working with me at that time, who was financially well off, financially independent. And he said, I hate to tell you this, I got to tell you the truth. He's like, don't do it. Unless it's like something you truly need, don't do it. It's going to damage you down the road. And I'm so grateful that he said that, and he was courageous enough to put that in my path, because I look back and I'm like, I'm so grateful I didn't buy that vehicle, because it would have been a money trap and would have costed me a fortune. So yeah, I think, just fail forward, learn the lessons, but constantly look for ways to educate yourself when it comes to finance, because it's consistently changing too. I mean, especially in the investment world, you hear these terms about gold and Bitcoin and
Yeah.
all that kind of stuff. And I always kind of go back. My rule of thumb is I go back to seeing people that have done the tried and true and are living financially independent. So
Mm.
I've learned to utilize the Canadian system. I mean, there's really no way of getting around it. Our government is our government, but the grateful news is that we live in a free enterprise system where we have the ability to be a business owner, I always encourage people, if you have an opportunity to start even a small business on the side, to do that. But do it with integrity. Do it with heart intention versus an ego. Like, you're right. You don't want to burn both ends of the stick because you're trying to pay for a house that's too big, a car that, you know, looks nice, but it's not bringing you any joy. And you come home and you're a shell of a person and you have no energetic left because you're so burnt out to keep these things in your life. But to learn about money and what brings you joy, I think that's really the root of all happiness, is bundling, you know, what's in your heart and serving that way and making enough to survive and be able to continue that path versus having all this stuff.
So what are the emotions that you think, when we talk about money and abundance, right? It's attached to lack of self-confidence, self-worth, you know, anything, you name it, right? But what are the most common emotions you get to see with people that are blocking abundance in their life? Because I think everybody have the potential. We're all, you know, I keep hearing that in the spiritual world is we are born abundant.
Yes.
We are designed to be abundant.
Yes.
That is innate in us. We all have it. So, but the question is, when you have somebody spiritually telling you that, you're like, what the fuck? It's not true because it's not coming my way. Right?
Yeah, I mean, so, I've been there.
But it goes with emotions that we have attached to that. What do you think are the most common emotions that is blocking people from abundance or financial wealth or financial freedom? We can call it in any way possible, depends on what we all believe. But at the end of the day, is having tons of money in the bank and being okay with it and say, I don't have to worry about money. At the end of the day, I think it goes with that. But what are the emotions that are blocking people from bringing that into their life?
I would have to say the biggest one is feeling not enough. Feeling not enough. That is a big one. I feel like, okay, I heard someone speak of this the other day, and I apologize, I can't remember where I heard it, but it resonates so loud in my mind and in my heart, mainly my heart. And, you know, we're born, like you said, we're born with abundance, and then we're at home, and then we go to kindergarten, and then we go to grade 1, and then we're off to grade 2 and 3, and then all of a sudden junior high and high school, then we go to college, and then we meet someone, and then we get married, and then we get the house, and then we get the kids, and like, there's never a point. I mean, I'm saying for most people, I'm speaking for myself as well, because I'm also healing from this in my life as I continue my journey, and it's a cycle, you know, some days you're out of it, some days you're back in it. It's really about what triggers you. But there's this constant need to the next best thing, And there's no sitting in, I am enough. Like for me, for example, I'm not married. I have a daughter. I've never been married. If I compare myself to the societal expectation, the truth is I would be a complete failure, because I went from climbing the corporate ladder to the bottom, like food bank-ish, to, you know, having a daughter and never being married and all these things, because we're told these things in our society. And it really does put us in a place where we feel like we're not good enough. And I'm speaking for women, but I'm sure men feel the same pressure, that men, I feel like, more tie their identity to how they can sustain themselves and contribute financially. And really, their identity is so much more than that. Their masculine is so much more than that. Our feminine is so much more than that. It's about what we contribute to the world. So the sad thing is I think that's really the big emotion that drives the lack. It's a huge block, is always never settling in. This is what I have. I'm truly, like, I have a deep gratitude for what I have today. It's always putting that aside and looking for the next thing. And
I want to go back. Yeah, I want to go a little bit deeper. And the reason is because I grew, and this is quite strange as I talk to more people. I'm coming from a family where we were completely encouraged, empowered, you know, you name it. Like that's, I'm lucky that way, right? And I know that's not the luck for everybody. However, not feeling enough, I wonder, and this is basically a personal question to understand, and I wonder how many people even cannot identify not feeling enough, what it means, how is that showing up in your life? If I feel I'm not enough, right? For dot dot dot, right? So, but how would that truly show in your life that it's that now I can identify and say, I understand, I need to move past this belief. It's a belief at the end of the day, right?
Huge story.
So how can I pass this belief? And then there might be another layer to it, I'm sure, because I don't think it's only one thing. But how can I identify that I am having that feeling of not enough or not worthy or something like that, right?
Well, the first most obvious one is the emotion of frustration, anger, envy, resent.
Wow.
You know, I've caught myself at times seeing women who are just thriving and going after it. And as much as I like to say I'm truly happy for them, I always question like, oh, why am I not there? Why am I not there? You know? And I think that's the first indicator is like when you start to look at other people and say, why don't I have that? It doesn't mean you have to be full on jealous person or an envious person, but you are comparing yourself internally, even though you don't recognize it in that moment. That's what comparison looks like. It doesn't have to be a full on jealousy where you start, you know, as they call it, haters or whatever.
Yeah.
Is. It could be something as genuine as like, why don't I have that yet? You know? And that's really something I've recognized in myself, but also the women I've worked with. I've heard a lot of women say, you know, why am I not married yet? Why don't I have babies yet? Why don't I have pretty hair like that? Why don't I want a purse like that? You know, I've worked so hard. Why can't I go buy a designer handbag? You know, and that's really the first awareness that shows that you are comparing yourself to another person, you know? And so that's what I've recognized in myself. And so when I see that behavior, right away I go into gratitude and I'm like, you know what? They have that for reasons that they're meant to have that, and God bless them. I have a good life. And I don't want to get into like the raw positive mindset, because I think sometimes that can turn into sweeping things under the carpet. It's like allow yourself to feel those things, because when you go through the feelings, like sometimes, and I don't mean this by any means that people are not being respectful, but a lot of times when I'm going through struggles or challenges, and you can see it, like people can feel it, right? We look down, we look more depressed, we look more shrunk in our stature, we don't look as confident. People's like, oh, just let it go, like, you know, just let it go, it'll be fine, everything's gonna work out, everything's gonna be okay. Yes, we know that, but just give yourself permission to feel those emotions, because they really do bring insight. And as much as I hated going through the pain,
Yes.
no one likes going through pain we avoid at all costs. I say I'm learning to embrace those emotions and understand that they're visitors. They're not who I am. Like you said, we come into this world abundant and perfect. We're perfect. We're not broken. We're just finding our journey back to self. Just allow yourself to go through that. It's showing you something. So when I feel negative emotion, I'm like, okay, I'm angry or I'm resentful. What is it about this emotion? What is it trying to teach me about my true self? Where am I out of alignment with my true self? If it's anger, okay, why am I angry right now? What did I not express? Because anger, like when we hold, it's deep hurt, right? At the end of the day. So what am I not expressing? What am I not saying in my truth? Or what am I not setting as a boundary that I need to learn how to set healthier boundaries? Because as a child, I was not taught, and I'm sure most of us can relate, I wasn't taught how to set healthy boundaries and live in authenticity. You know, the generation, or I shouldn't even say the generation, I'm sure it goes through all generations, but the way I grew up, women were looked at as second class in the household. That's why women didn't talk about money, because the man took care of the money, the woman took care of the home, and that always left my mom vulnerable, you know. And my mom was a great woman, she worked very hard, but we were not taught that it was okay for us to speak up about things that mattered. So, you know, not to you know, to go into a random conversation, but just know if you're feeling a negative emotion, whether it's irritation, anger, resent, I always ask myself, what is this emotion trying to tell me about my true nature? And what do I need to do to express that?
Well, the reality, everything goes back to our childhood, we
Yeah.
like it or not, right? And that is a big influencer. You were talking about surrounding yourself with the right people. The thing is, like, we like in the spiritual world, yes, we choose our parents, right?
We sure do.
However, okay, for people that do not believe in that, right, you're still surrounding yourself with this people, this group of people, mom, dad, uncles, grandma, you know, you name it, cousins, that you say, you might tell yourself, oh my God, I didn't choose this family. I wanted a wealthy family.
Don't we all?
But when you're surrounded with that energy, right, whether we choose that or not,
Yeah.
we it is, I find that it can be quite hard for people because this is your childhood. This is the foundation of everything we become later in life.
Mm-hmm.
And so, how can we break those patterns in your experience?
The number one thing is, again, it's like searching for gratitude for it because it creates contrast. And what do I mean by contrast? Contrast is, how do you know what you really want if you've never gone through what you don't want?
Mm-hmm.
I've learned this, and I'm sure a lot of women can relate. I've learned this in my financial life. I've also learned it in my love life. And you know what I've realized is that every time, you know, I replace a relationship or one just needs to die and I need to let it take its course and not control it, it's meant to happen, and something better always comes along.
Yeah.
Something more renewed, something more in alignment. And because we're always evolving as people, there's always going to be somebody coming into our lives that is attracted to that, to co-create with that. Because really, at the end of the day, we're here to create. So to double back to your question and how to get out of the belief patterns, is that first of all, there's that emotion. And one thing I always hear is, for example, ITFAR, ITFAR.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
right? We have I'm just going to say the intention, we have that thought come through. Thoughts are neutral, right? We talk about different things. Like, for example, if I had let's say I hold up a lemon, for example, and, you know, we've all had different experiences with the lemon. It doesn't change the fact that I'm holding up a lemon. The lemon is a lemon, but if someone ate it and really loved it and enjoyed it, or it was something that their grandma had at her kitchen table, that's going to be a very positive thought, right? Because it's surrounded by love and appreciation and a good feeling. Now, if we had a lemon cut and it squirted into our eye, you know, we're going to have a negative connection to that lemon. So our thoughts are really neutral. It's about the meaning that we give to those thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
So when thoughts come through, I really take the time to meditate and really listen to what those thoughts mean. And I'll just give you a couple examples. I didn't have the best male role models in my life growing up. I grew up around a lot of drugs and alcohol abuse. And the truth is that's all I knew at one point in time. But there was a piece of me that always questioned, you know, that there was something not in alignment because I didn't feel good around it.
Yep.
When those thoughts come through, for example, one of the stories I used to tell myself is that I needed to be in a relationship and I needed to be married to be complete. I needed to serve to be a woman, you know? And the second piece to that is that I was to be in the relationship to serve that man and to help him find himself, because that's what I learned. That's the work, right? We're there to help people stand by your man. I'm sure a lot of women can relate to this.
Yeah.
Stand by your man.
Wow.
Well, that was a story I told myself up until a couple years ago, because it's not your job to parent a man. It's not your job to teach him values. He already has those values. It's your job to go and find somebody who embodies the same values that you do, or at least respects the same values that you do and adds to your life. So I had to start telling myself that story. And how did I tell myself that story? I got around people that had healthy marriages. I stopped hanging around. Don't get me wrong, I have single girlfriends. I love them, embrace them. I have my time for them. But I started bringing married people into my life.
Yeah.
And I'd ask them questions. So what makes your marriage special? Tell me the good, bad, and the ugly. Tell me
Well,
it all.
that's the influence that you gotta bring in your life, right?
Yeah,
That's what you're looking at.
you do have to seek it. Like same thing with wealth. I started researching what wealth companies do we have in Calgary, Alberta. And one of the companies I started working with was Primerica.
Mm-hmm.
People at the office, the gentleman that owns our office makes about 1.6 million plus a year. And so I asked him questions. I'm like, how did you become a millionaire?
Yeah.
What was your thoughts when you started this business to where you are today?
Yeah.
And the stories he told himself, whether you ask someone like Grant Cardone, who's wildly successful in real estate, or Oprah Winfrey, or any of these major leaders, and I'm not talking about their money, I'm
Mm-hmm.
talking about their wealth, how happy they are. They were long, before they encountered that money, they were already abundant in their mindset.
Yeah. Yeah.
They were already believing in themselves. They were already cultivating stories that were healthy for themselves. They were stepping into alignment to who they wanted to be. And in a way, sometimes when you start that process, you're going to have, I'm just being very, transparent here, you're going to have what's called imposter syndrome.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Everyone's like, I'm sure they can relate. And not only are you going to feel awkward about writing down who you want to be and starting to come into alignment with that and feel a little off, but you're going to have people around you who are going to tell you that you're off.
Yep.
And that's a challenge. And I look at that as like the crabs in the bucket. They mean well, but they will hold you back, because a lot of times people function, if they're in scarcity mindset, they function out of fear. They have a fear you're going to leave them behind. So I respect my family. I respect my friends. But when I was learning the language of wealth, and I'm still continuing to do that, a lot of the stuff I talk about, I have to have my blinders on when I hear people's opinions about certain topics, because the truth is it's foreign to them.
Yeah, no, definitely. Definitely.
So I always say, just be very discerning too on who you're taking your advice from. I never take advice from someone who's broke about wealth and finances. There's no disrespect. We all have a journey, and I respect their journey because I've been there. But when it comes to taking that identity to another level, I listen to people who have wealth. Same with marriage. Yep. I want to be married one day. I feel it in my heart to share a journey, not to fulfill or complete me, but to partner up and expand on what's happening in my life. That is, I have to get around couples who feel that way too.
Yep, no, 100%. So what is the advice that you get to people that are watching this?
The biggest advice is be a seeker and not a follower.
Oh, wow.
Constantly seek what you're looking for, because the universe is abundant. There's people out there, and one thing I wish I heard when I was a lot younger, but I'm grateful I know it today, is you are so worth everything. You are so deserving of everything. This world is so full of abundance, and it just gets better and better and better. There are people who are far less fortunate than you, who are far less talented than you, that are out there living the life of their dreams because they chose to believe in themselves. So just go for it. You only got one life.
No, beautiful, beautiful. Well, that's what we think, that we only have one life, at least one life in this body.
Yes, in this body. Yes, exactly.
Yeah, totally. Well, thank you very much. And I want to share everybody, I will be sharing all the information on when you can find Jenn and get more information from her for sure. And just a reminder, you can find me on social media and Instagram under Happy Naked, same thing, Facebook, and all that kind of stuff. You can get some information about, what's coming with, with this podcast and the fitness programs and all that kind of stuff under thehealthandfitness.com or Naked Fit online. So thank you very much. I really, really appreciate the fact that you say yes to this. This means a lot. And at the end of the day, we're all, my purpose of having doing this is to elevate us to the next level and have the freedom to speak our truth. Because there's a lot of censoring that we're experiencing these days. And what I would like to make sure is that we are able to have a platform where we can swear or talk about things that nobody talk about, and freely. That is the key thing for me, and this is why I'm also choosing the naked truth, taboo conversations, because it's about being free to speak, be free to share, be free to be ourselves. And I think that is what is also going to allow us to get to the next level in life, because you talk about the imposter syndrome, and you know what, it is, I get it, but I think we're better when we are ourselves. And I'm
Absolutely.
gonna, out of all the things you talk about today, I want to mention three things that I think are quite key to everything that you shared. So I think number one is choose your influences. Surround yourself. In this case, you chose wealthy people, but
Mhm.
depends on what each one of the goals. I think it applies to anything in life, right?
Yes.
Surround yourself to the proper people that is going to create a positive influence, or is going to take us to wherever we want to go next,
A
because I
mentorship.
think that influence is going to change, and over time.
Exactly. Always
So
have a mentor. Always have a
exactly, your mentors, so have the good influences in your life. And the other one that I love, it is pay yourself first.
yeah.
Whatever money comes to you, pay yourself first, and then make sure then after that you do the rest that we all need to do, right?
Yes. Yes.
And,
Great.
and the tip number three, which is pretty much aligned with with emotions that we have around money and all that stuff, but it's how we can counteract that is with gratitude. Have
Okay.
that gratitude mindset, or gratitude, like be grateful for everything. Not, sometimes not everything that happened in life, it is what we would like us to go through,
Mhm.
but it's always teaching us a lesson. And that's what we need to be grateful for. We need to be grateful for the adventure, for that challenge that we're all facing. Because if we have our eyes wide open, our ears, all our senses super active, I'm sure you all will find a lesson out of that experience.
Yes. And
Sometimes we
God
don't
loves
see
you,
it.
right?
Yeah.
God's the greatest parent of all, and He gives you tough love. So embrace it.
Exactly, exactly. So thank you very much
Oh,
for
my
being
pleasure.
part
Thank
of this.
you.
It is amazing. So thank you, and please follow us. Follow Jen. Contact her. I will be putting all the information as well. And thank you. And please share this. I'm sure it's going to help somebody to start building a better relationship with money.
Absolutely.
Thank
Thank
you.
you guys so much. Thank you, Dee. You're such an inspiration.
Thank
Have
you.
a great evening.